I'm Christine. Welcome to the Recovering Perfectionist Podcast, where I empower you to develop sustainable habits, challenge society, and take messy action. It's time to align with the universe for the full human experience and redefine what it really means to be successful.
It's too good, the secret is out and wow.
Welcome back to the Recovering Perfectionist Podcast, this season in partnership with the dance wellness community. And of course, it is the first of the month, and we have another amazing practitioner for you here today. I am here with Christine Matsumoto, and she is a dance performance coach and physical therapist. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you, Christine. I really appreciate the invite. Yes.
Absolutely. And I always say, two Christines are better than one. So
there you go.
Y'all are getting a 2 for 1. So great. I'm so excited to have you. This is so fantastic. This is when we talk about wellness and, introducing all these practitioners and all that, we're doing we have financial wellness, we have mental health, we have confidence, all kinds of different things. But the physical recovery of your body and the physical preparation for a competition and just, all the aspects. This is what most people consider to be wellness, right? Is when you have an injury, when you have muscle, a physical ailment versus some people, when they think of mental or financial, it's more of like it's not tangible. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's a lot of what we do as competitors and dancers is how do we optimize our physical capabilities so that like our artistry and our musicality can show on the floor. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to do.
Yeah. So we'll do the top 3 questions like I asked everyone else so we understand exactly what we're here to talk about. First of all, what do you specifically specialize in?
Yeah, so I am a dance performance coach and a physical therapist. And I've kind of defined it for myself. And what I do is I help competitive dancers achieve their best physical capacity and performance. And this could be through a variety of means. The most obviously would be rehabilitation from injuries, but also any type of physical limitation that is challenging or limiting a dancer's ability to perform their best. So it could be symptom related.
Sure.
It could be pain. It could be something physically that they're experiencing and that's limiting their performance. But it could also be from the conditioning aspect, which would be lack of cardiovascular endurance or stamina, lack of strength or speed. So I go through a full musculoskeletal assessment in addition to a full assessment of their dancing. I try to see all my clients live. If not, I'll do a full assessment of each of their routines. I'll learn all anywhere from 3 to 5 to 10 or so routines of theirs to really understand what are the physical demands of their body and what can help to optimize their performance and get them to the next level.
Wow, that's amazing. Right, because you're also a dancer.
I am, yes.
And that's what's so cool. For those of you who are listening to all of the podcasts that we're doing, the episodes, this is a community created for dancers by dancers. Everyone that you're talking to here has some sort of competition, performance, or dance experience. And so we know exactly what you're going through because we're going through it too.
100%.
Definitely. How long have you been coaching and doing this?
So I would say that it's kind of ramped up gradually, but I would say in the last 4 years or so, I've taken on individual clients and worked with them, not again just to help them optimize their performance, either through rehabilitation of injuries or through physical conditioning.
Sure, that's amazing. And what do you consider to be your target client or like your ideal, I don't want to say patient, but person that you help?
Definitely. Yeah. So I would say my ideal client is an adult competitive dancer. any ballroom style. I don't specialize in any one style.
Okay.
I used to ten dance myself, just the
Awesome.
international styles. But I've been around our dance community long enough, and I am well versed in just the physical technique necessary for each style. So the type of ballroom style doesn't matter, but I would say an adult competitive dancer who is looking to improve their physical capacity on the floor
Mhm.
and probably recognizes that just taking additional dance lessons won't help them optimize what they can. So they're looking for alternative conditioning strategies to take them to the next level. Or for adult competitors who have some type of symptom or ailment that's really limiting their ability to perform at their best. These are my two target audiences.
Sounds good. Yeah, I mean that's exactly a lot. So many people can relate to those two scenarios, I think. I think with ballroom dancing athletes in particular, we watch the high competitive athletics. We're in an Olympic year, so we watch Olympic athletes, things like that, which I believe ballroom dancers are at that same level.
100%. Yep.
Mental health is extremely important. We're having more of those conversations, thank goodness. Financial health, absolutely, because you can't do anything if you can't afford to do it. And it's a very expensive sport. But you literally can't perform if like you have a broken leg or if you have issues with your body or your body just like, if you're gonna pass out on the floor, that's a physical condition. This is very important. This is probably number one on most people's list of if they're going to work with a coach, it's going to be you. You know what I mean? Kind of thing, which is because this is the body is their temple, it's their tool, you know? And so,
Absolutely.
and so how, I want to know, you just got done with the competition where you were a vendor over there. I want to know exactly like what people, when they hear this is what you do, because the reason that I created this community, the dance wellness community, is because we don't have a lot of support in this area. If anyone has an issue or hurts themselves on the floor, really they just go to a doctor, but we don't have any in-house, let's say doctors or physical therapists or anything like that, just sitting on the sidelines waiting in case someone hurts themselves, like in the NBA, right? So when they find out this is what you do they immediately go, oh my gosh, well, hang on, this hurts and then this hurts and then can you help me? Can you look at this real quick? And
It's really interesting. So I started vendoring this year. My first vendoring experience was at City Lights in San Jose.
okay, yeah.
That's where I'm kind of based out of. So it's a local competition. I know a lot of the dancers, competitors, adjudicators, etc. And I think each time I participate or I'm granted the opportunity to vendor at a dance competition, I think it really um, informs how I can build and scale my business
Mhm.
and really what people are looking for. I think that's more of the important thing. But my intention with vendoring at competitions is just to break down barriers and limit the challenges to access of healthcare, but
For sure.
also physical assistance and kind of show our dance community that there is someone who has knowledge of dance technique, is a current competitor herself, and recognizes not just the physical challenges
Mhm.
and the physical needs in order to operate at this high of a performance level, but also kind of the circumstances around what being a competitor really means. So we were talking earlier a little bit just about like preparation and
Mhm.
recovery and how all aspects really are crucial as you get higher um, and more seasoned as a competitor. Yeah, so
Sure.
I'm hoping that my being at competitions now will just open up conversations and show our ballroom community that there's some that can really help them with of any physical limitations, but also help to train performance in a different aspect.
So what, right. And so to go back to what you were saying, what are people actually looking for when it comes to physical um help, I guess?
Yeah, I would say the most obvious uh, the most obvious aspect of what I do, because I am also a physical therapist, is I do help individuals, dancers with symptoms. So, for example, a few competitions ago, a dancer came to me and was having, uh, she called it like soreness around her neck and shoulder blade. She's a Latin dancer,
Mm,
and she said it doesn't bother her day to day, but it really ramps up after a long practice day after competition,
right.
and she feels like it's really limiting her ability to perform at her best. And so we did a full musculoskeletal assessment where I looked at her alignment, her posture. I saw her dance the night before, so I had an idea of the style of her choreography and
Hmm.
how it's constructed. That actually gives me a lot of context of the dancer that I'm evaluating. And then through that, we were able to create a plan of strengthening and stabilization. And I've been keeping up with her for the last few competitions, and her symptoms are improving.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I love that you watch them dance too, because that's so important to understand what's the end goal of the performance in order to know, like, what am I trying to help this person achieve here?
Definitely. Yeah. It forms a lot of what I do, but also not just in the physical aspect, but where else they could also be struggling. And I
Right.
think performance is a broad term. I primarily look at physical performance, but
Hmm.
as ballroom dancers, there is an aesthetic
Sure.
component to what we do that's just as important. And we're when we're judged subjectively, it's also important for competitors to realize that it's not just the physical nature; it's also the aesthetic quality and the movement quality that we want to produce.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of want to touch more on that, especially since we are in an Olympic year. For those who are always asking why ballroom dancing is not in the Olympics yet, and the answer to that is because it's judged by humans. Um,
Absolutely.
when you have your coaches who are also dancers at one point, and then they judge the next, it's just not there's not a I don't want to say fair, but for the most part, it's not as
Like
uh,
standardized criteria.
standardized. Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
as it would be, as another sport would be. However, that being said, that does not diminish how athletic these dancers are. And
absolutely.
just as much as a swimmer and a gymnast and the way we use our bodies in this sport. Um, what kind of like I saw in Dancing with the Stars one time them actually do like a body scan of someone. They put all of the, the muscle things on, like the little sticky things on them to
Yeah.
understand, and they showed, like, with different colors on the screen, exactly what muscles were being used and what dance and all these different things to show how athletic compared to like a swimmer and a gymnast and all of these different things. How important is it for us to understand what muscles are being used? And like, do your clients, are they just looking for the help, or are they like, are you helping them to understand their bodies better?
I think I think it's both. Yeah, I think that those who come to see me at a competition, they've probably already seen some practitioners
Mm,
already, most likely,
right.
and maybe they've gotten a little bit of help, maybe they've gotten some temporary relief, but they haven't actually been able to solve the core root of their problem. And at least like in the physical therapy rehabilitation sense, it's treating the symptoms, not the cause. So my hope is to um, create a service for dancers that not just looks at their symptoms and creates a plan to improve their symptoms, but really look at the dancer holistically. And that's why, being like earlier today, I was at the competition watching my dancer live. And I think it's really important that I see how they perform kind of under a high stress situation, which is
Right.
the competitive performance. And even though I'm not technically a dance instructor, there is quite a bit of overlap in how I'm helping to improve these dancers' like physical performance on the floor.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's incredible. Um, when it comes to like preparing for a competition, I think this is one of the biggest things that people ask, like, the controversy around stretching, how should I stretch? Um, should I stretch every day, even if I'm not competing, even if I'm not practicing? What would you say is important so say someone does not have any ailments, right? We
Yep,
don't have any major issues, but maintenance and making sure that you don't, like, basically preventative,
totally.
right? What would you tell that person to do in regards to preventative methods of making sure that they're keeping their body in tip-top shape and so that they can maintain this high level of athletics?
Yeah, this is a great question. These are also a few clients that I get right now. They have like no current symptoms, no current issues, and they're really just looking to maintain and build up their performance, but also longevity. Really
Longevity.
having longevity in
Hmm.
their activity and doing something they want to do for however long they choose to do it.
Right.
So maybe if I can give you context for the how this conversation would begin. So I'll go through a full assessment, a full musculoskeletal assessment of their body, and so I'll do full medical history and workup of any previous injuries that they've had. That'll give me an idea of which areas could be more at risk, what style of dance they do, because there are certain actions that are more utilized in one style versus another. Let's say standard versus Latin, for
Sure.
example.
Hmm.
Yeah. So in Latin, our hips and our legs are a little bit more turned out versus standard, we're actually rotated inwards quite a bit. We're either parallel or more rotated inwards to create dynamics and rotation. Yeah. So I know what style they dance. I take a look at how they move on the floor. So either live or videos of how they coordinate their actions with their partner,
Hmm.
and then I take a look at range, strength, endurance, and I look for key areas of their body that could be more at risk. And just because my primary population are ballroom dancers, we either wear anywhere from a half-inch heel to 3.5 inch heels. So that changes the physical alignment of our body,
Right.
will change the position of our pelvis, therefore changing the stress on kind of our low to mid back. And in an example of just making comparisons, like standard dancers primarily only have one physical um, position of their arms.
Right.
So certain areas of one shoulder will be tighter than the other area.
Mm.
So these asymmetries are really important for me to assess, and therefore I can come to my dancer and say these are the areas that I feel like could be more at risk to create problems in the future. Let's either improve some mobility, stretch them out, improve some strength, and make sure they're
Mm.
supporting yourself and or your partner appropriately, and let's build up those areas.
Yeah. Do you just as you're saying that, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, the amount of massages and things that I got when I was competing on a regular basis, or just stretching in general. Do you recommend like those uh techniques for or tools, I would say, for preventative, right? Or maintenance of like regular massages. I don't know, some people are for or against chiropractic. Obviously regular stretching, maybe like warm baths, or even some people are now doing the cold plunges, right? The ice baths, um, halo, what is it? Red light therapy, like how I want to speak a little bit on the biohacking of what's happening in the world today.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of information
Hmm.
in this day and age, and everything is accessible, which is great because the barriers to information are less.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the censorship is pretty close to non-existent. So if you're
Right.
not knowing what you're looking for and how to gauge whether or not it's qualified
Accurate.
information,
Right.
an
Totally.
advice to take on, then there's just a lot out there. Yeah.
Sure.
And overall, I think it's great. But the flip side of that is it's just uncensored and it's unfiltered.
Yeah. So,
So
so should we do like a like Mythbusters kind of thing? Like,
sure we can.
you know what I mean? Like all of these things that people say work, do they actually work?
Yeah,
You
I would say
know?
you already touched upon like a few
Hmm.
kind of crucial aspects of what we're talking about right now is recovery. So
Yes.
like stretching, should we do it before and after? What should we do and how much should we do or how long should we do it?
Hmm.
And I think for stretching, primarily to increase like flexibility of our muscles and our joints. Yeah, dynamic stretching is actually recommended prior to physical activity. This has been long
Sure.
um, supported and substantiated in the scientific research. So, dynamic stretching is anywhere from like 15 to 30-second holds versus post activity, you want to go for like longer duration holds up to a minute.
Oh,
Yeah. What I see with my dancers is usually the opposite. They do long duration stretching before they like strap their shoes on and get up and move. Yeah.
interesting.
But what we've seen in the literature is that that can actually decrease your muscular performance and power.
Mm.
So, my recommendation for this aspect of prepping your body to dance, whether it's in practice or at a competition, is dynamic stretching helps to create this like fast stretch of our muscles and our tissues that helps to bring blood flow to the area. You need blood flow to your muscles
Hmm.
prior to requiring them to work most optimally. So
Right.
that's why a lot of dancers that I see and what I commonly hear is that the first round is always the hardest.
Yeah.
Typically, because they're waiting around 20 minutes on deck. Maybe they warmed up like an hour and a half before, but now their body has cooled down. So you want to find strategies to keep the blood flow to the area, primarily like arms, legs,
And keep your
while
muscles
you're
warm.
waiting on deck,
Right.
because you don't want your first round to be your quote unquote warm up round.
Right. Interesting. Yes. So then you have like red light therapies and cold plunges, cryotherapy, all of these things. Are these things that you encourage utilizing? Are these things that you feel, they're kind of a hot, trendy thing going on right now, and it's not necessarily yielding that many results?
Yeah, I'll speak primarily to cryotherapy, and we'll put that under the component of basically like ice baths, cold plunges, what have
Yes.
you. So what's currently out there is that this can help to decrease inflammation, help to aid in recovery.
Mhm.
Which is great. If you are, say, working on building muscular hypertrophy, which is actually like the size, and say you're doing a conditioning program in a way to condition your body for dancing. So this would be like a gym program, a strength workout. If you're doing that, then the recommendation is not to do the cold plunge immediately afterwards, because this can actually blunt um, hypertrophy changes in the muscle
Oh, wow.
tissue. Yeah. For dancers, I would say they're a great option for like post competition. Definitely, because that can
Okay.
help to decrease blood flow for a short period of time, but then increase the blood flow once you get out of the water, and then that can also help to aid in a faster recovery.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. And then all the red light therapies and all of these different things, these, or saunas, things like that. Can you speak to that a little?
Yeah, so currently the support for sauna use is actually well substantiated. It's similar to that of like cold plunges. Um,
Okay.
However, if you are going to spend some time in the sauna, you want to make sure you're replenishing your electrolytes, specifically sodium, because when you sweat a lot, and this could be even after competition,
That's a good
most of
point.
our dancers are pushing, let's say, anywhere from 160 to could be close to 200 beats per minute of their heart rate. So they're pushing like pretty
Mm.
high intensity activity when they're competing. Yeah. And then
Right.
you combat that with maybe some like nerves, some adrenaline, what have you. You actually have like physical hormones that will increase your heart rate, in addition to the physical performance aspects
Yeah, yeah,
necessary
yeah.
to dance jive or dance quick step at the
I was
dance
just
or
thinking jive. I was like,
beanies
yeah, I'm
waltz,
sure.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So in addition to that, so you hit some pretty high intensity, pretty high heart rate zones when you do rounds, and especially when you compete.
Mm,
So it's important that you're rehydrating, and then specifically you're replenishing your electrolytes afterwards. And going back to that of a sauna, if you do want to do a sauna, make sure you're getting enough hydration um, and sodium afterwards, because maybe the next day you might actually feel a little bit worse because you haven't actually replenished like the necessary
right.
fluid
You
electrolytes.
got the toxins out, but you got to put good things back in. Yeah, exactly.
Especially if you sweat a lot.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's the biggest thing that we're, hearing right now is not, it's more so like detoxing, and a lot of things that are happening from like neurological disorders, from like heavy metals and parasites, things like that. Because I like how you touched on like the fact that you do things very holistically. I think that's also a very important piece to what I want to create with the dance wellness community, not just as a metaphor for the community, very organic, right, not very forced, but also in the wellness that we're creating, right? We're not trying to just say, oh, okay, just take an Advil, you know what I mean? Or just go, do, take a over-the-counter medication, or, have a surgery. There's so many things you can do before you have to go to those extreme measures. And a lot of, supplements, or like you said, putting back in. So a lot of people are really big on magnesium these days because that's helping with so many aspects of their life. What do you feel in the holistic space that you really like, some of your go-tos for your clients that you're like, oh, everybody should be doing this?
I think specifically it would be any type of down regulation breathing. So anything that helps to decrease kind of like the heightened mental and physical
Mm-hmm.
stimulus after rounds and or competition. Yeah. So
Okay.
this is why I used to call it, or I still kind of call it, the post-competition hangover. The next day you wake up and you just feel like done, trashed, anywhere from like 1 round to 6 rounds that maybe you danced or what have you. But the next day you wake up and you just feel kind of wrecked.
Uh-huh.
And part of it is the physical exertion. Again, because if you're doing obviously the more rounds that you dance,
Right.
probably the more recovery is necessary. But I think there's something about kind of the late nights, high stimulation, bright lights in the
The
ballroom,
adrenaline,
a lot of
right?
people watching you. All of these
Yes,
things are kind of
a
that
factor.
make up like an incredible atmosphere to dance in. But like coming down from that, it can be challenging, and it can
Right.
also be like pretty physically taxing. And then the next day, your performance and your physical body will take a little bit of a hit. So working on any type of slow exhalation is very well substantiated in the scientific literature. So this could be very simple in the sense that you just work on making sure you take longer time with your exhales. So the second you're done on the floor, even before awards, you're taking a seat, you're making sure you're trying to get your heart rate down. That
Hmm.
can aid in recovery, because as your heart rate maintains this higher zone, it'll be you'll feel it later. So the
Okay.
earlier you can get your heart rate down through breathing techniques, specifically training your exhalation, the better you'll feel overall.
Does this include things like meditation, you know, what other breathing techniques? I mean, obviously like EFT, like tapping, any of this type of stuff, or is this just something that you specifically, just breathing in general? Do you have a specific program or something that you guide people through?
Yeah, usually I'll recommend two strategies. One is more of like a general, just training your exhalation, increasing the time of your exhale by 2 to 4 seconds. So if you
Okay.
were to So say you're coming off a competition floor, your heart rate's going, you're sweating, you're palpitating, you're sitting down, and you feel like your heart rate is still going, which it should be. Yeah. It'll
Right.
take some time for your heart rate to return back to what would say is anywhere from like 60 to 100 roughly is a normal resting heart rate.
Okay.
Yeah. But the earlier you can bring that down, the better. So training your exhalation just to elongate it anywhere from 2 to 4 seconds can be super beneficial because it can drop your heart rate faster. That way your body recovers earlier.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another strategy that I'll use is like square breathing. So you breathe in, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out, hold for 4 seconds, and then breathe in. So especially when you're coming off a competition floor and or rounds, it's really actually quite difficult to hold your breath. So
Yes.
so finding that that physical discipline is actually pretty challenging. And um, this is one thing I'll recommend for my clients that have trouble with the recovery.
Interesting. Yeah, because
Yeah.
we hear a lot about like, making sure you're getting enough oxygen, right? Taking
Mhm.
deep breaths and not just right. You want to do like a deep breath in, so you're getting more oxygen to the brain and all of these different things. But it's interesting that you're emphasizing the exhale.
Yeah, so naturally we have physiologic processes that will tell us, even if we're not consciously aware of it, to continue breathing. So that's
Hmm.
automatically regulated by our body. That's why when we sleep, we're still alive, even though we're unconscious. We breathe throughout the entire night. But when we start to kind of engage our physical bodies, coming down from that, naturally we will breathe in, but it's also really important to expel the CO2. Yeah. And especially when
Yes,
we're coming off some type of high intensity exercise, it's even more crucial for recovery.
that's incredible. Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think there are so many aspects to physical, not just, I don't want to say just focus on the recovery because you're also helping people with preventative, you're also helping people with injuries. How important is it for a an athlete to understand their body? Because I grew up learning about my body in the sense of like understanding like not just the emotional side of it and the physical side, but the energetic side of things, how I feel when I feel. I actually struggle with motion sickness, so I've had to deal with those types of things when I'm in moving vehicles, things like that, and then understanding like how things come up, and oh, I need to go do something about this now, or I still have 10, 15 minutes before it gets really bad, so I should, nip it in the bud. But that took years and years and years of understanding, listening to my body, reacting, trying things. Maybe it didn't work, trying something else. For those who are trying to really compete at a high level, place in, the top 10, the top 5 at nationals, how important is it for you to understand your body on a level that really only you can do, because we go see a regular doctor, and just because they have a degree on the wall doesn't mean that they understand our bodies, right? They understand their body and they can understand the body in general as a whole, but everyone's body is a little bit different and everyone has different things that they react to or that, you know, ails them or whatever, or how they recover. But it's very important to understand your body. Do you feel, I mean, obviously you feel that way as well. That's what you teach your clients.
Mhm. Yeah, this is a great question, and it's a really broad question that I guess I could answer it through in different ways. But I
Yeah,
would
there's a lot
say
to understanding your body, but I think
totally,
just
yeah.
I think separating also because there are so many people that come into our industry, um, that are dancing, whether they be an amateur and they're dancing with a teacher, they're learning, maybe they're not professionals, but they come in and then they're like, oh, well, I didn't know that I needed a protein bar. You know what I mean? I went on the floor and I got a little dizzy, and then they have to sit down and they didn't understand why. And it's like, oh, there were so many signs before that. A professional probably would have caught those signs because they had that happen to them multiple times,
Right.
right? So it's through trial and error. It's not that it's just they've had more experiences in that. But how do you teach your clients to understand their body better?
Yeah, I think that I certainly try to.
Hmm.
I'm very fortunate in the sense that a lot of people who come to me have either had a problem that hasn't been solved by someone else. So I know what they've already tried or what someone else has already tried to assist in them, and then I can go about it in a different way, whether
Yeah.
it's a physical injury.
That
When
comes back to you saying treating the symptoms or the cause.
That's
That a
correct.
lot of people, yeah, a lot of people they have issues and then they don't realize that, they get all these tests. They say, "Oh, my blood tests are fine." And
Right.
then they don't realize that there's actually a deeper rooted cause of what's happening.
Yeah, I think those that come to me, they like see my booth or they saw something on social media and they reach out to me personally.
Mm.
Usually it's because they have a problem, whether you typically it's a physical one, but it doesn't have to be a physical injury, let's say.
Mhm.
Usually it's a physical problem that hasn't been solved by anyone else.
Mm.
So, for example, I was seeing an individual that would get really nauseous immediately after being on the floor, like
Mm.
very, very nauseous. And then a we had to take a look at when is it happening, in what context. We had to go through a cardiovascular screen, and what we found out is that the reaction of her body to the high intensity exercise was nausea. And so, kind of training and building a conditioning program to improve not just her capacity to operate at a high heart rate level, but
Mhm.
also to give her strategies to um, bring her heart rate down in between the dances or in between rounds on the floor. That was really crucial. Yeah.
Wow.
But she came to me knowing quite a bit about how her body was feeling already. So, in that
Okay.
sense, I think my clients are really my best resource because, as you said, they know their body the best. They live in their
Right.
body. I
They're
don't,
aware. They need to be aware of what's happening in order to share
yeah,
that with you.
yeah. And I think that those who are more seasoned um, in dancing and in competition, they've kind
Mhm.
of already tried, let's say, strategies that have helped before. Like this
Sure.
individual would only have coffee and no food prior to
Mm.
um, prior to dancing because of course she didn't want to feel super nauseous and throw up afterwards,
Right.
right? But then coffee is a diuretic. Coffee on an empty stomach is probably not the best thing. And if you're
Yes.
training multiple, if you're doing multiple rounds, she's doing single dances plus various multi-dance rounds, then she was probably burning through most of her glucose storages. And then by the time she actually got a chance to rest, that sensation of nausea was even worse. So
That's
finding
crazy.
and experimenting with strategies of like food prior, maybe no coffee, or if this individual is having coffee no more than 3 hours earlier, right? Because then coffee or caffeine
Yes.
can also increase your heart rate. So then you're
Hmm.
starting at a higher heart rate, combat that with nerves, and then you do anywhere from 3 to 5 dances in a row. Kind of makes sense as to why this individual wasn't feeling great coming off the floor.
Wow, there's so many components to understanding just the one issue, yeah?
Yeah, and I think that I see clients of various, let's say, physical ailments if they do have them, and it's not just musculoskeletal injuries like an ankle sprain or what have you.
Hmm.
Usually, it's some type of physical challenge that is limiting their ability to perform or limiting the quality of the experience.
Mm.
So she couldn't enjoy dancing because she
Right.
felt sick afterwards. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it
And that'll
actually,
mess with your
yeah,
mental, in which case then you kind of psych yourself out and then it makes it worse. It's like a whole cycle.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I used to have a similar I had an issue that was similar to the nausea, but I would basically, when I would compete, my mouth would get so dry between dances that it would almost force me to gag in a sense, and I would start coughing. So I always had water nearby on a table that I could just, you know what I mean, real quick. Because yeah, it's kind of my way of like dealing with the nerves, I guess. Even though I would be excited to go out there, it would I would almost be like nervous that my mouth would get too dry, that I would start coughing between rounds. So I had to figure that out. But yeah, there's so many little pieces to the puzzle. Is there anything that you feel that could happen to someone physically, that they would not be able to come back from if they wanted to compete again?
I don't,
I mean, it just may take longer for some
yeah,
ailments than others, but is there
yeah.
anything that you feel like is everything can be recovered and you can get back on the floor?
I 100% believe that. I
Yeah,
really do. I think that when it comes to, let's say, a musculoskeletal injury,
sure.
could be a shoulder sprain, could be a low back injury because you're doing cabaret and you're lifting your
Oh,
partner.
yes.
Anything could be that you practiced 2 weeks ago and you rolled your ankle because you're wearing 3-inch heels, right?
Yeah.
I think all of these types of musculoskeletal injuries can definitely um, if they're treated appropriately and if there is an appropriate plan and protocol in place to improve those symptoms, dancers can absolutely get back to where they want to be, if not stronger. But honestly, they really have to want it and they have to be committed
Yeah,
to
they got to put the work
the
in.
program. Yeah, that's
Sure.
really what it comes down to. I think those individuals that I see who maybe have had kind of long standing injuries or intermittent injuries on and
Hmm.
off, um, quite frankly, probably haven't taken it seriously enough and put in the work in the forefront to rehabilitate their body to the best of their ability, but then also train up their body to prevent future injuries.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Um, this is so good. I could ask you all these questions forever and ever. But also like, what's interesting is, Simone Biles is about to compete in the Olympics and she is 27. What I think is so amazing about ballroom dancing is that most of our dancers, professionals are, they're like in their 30s,
Mhm.
and they kind of, we don't really have an age where you're too old. You know what I mean? Yes, there we kind of make our own age of like, oh, well, I'm too old to compete with the young kids, in the professional division or whatever.
Right.
But that's not to say that they can't win.
There's no
Um,
age limit, and
there's no
you don't
age
age out of
limit.
ballroom dancing.
No, you don't. And that's the most incredible part of it is that, I mean, when it comes to the pro-am side, I mean, I've danced with a student who is 84 years old. And let me tell you, he would give some 20, 30-year-olds a run for their money.
I believe it.
Yeah. And then you have some women, the same thing when they dance with their male professionals. But when it comes to, I mean, in rhythm, we had someone in their 40s who became a champion. And I think that's incredible. And that just goes to show maybe just how well they take care of themselves, but
Right.
also, if you have a goal, like you said, if you do the work, also, fingers crossed they don't get a lot of injuries because that could take a while for them to come back from that, in which case maybe they lose their spot in the competition and they have to kind of come back to that. But also what I think is very interesting about what we do is we're dancing with another person.
Hmm.
So your movement is action reaction to another person's movement.
Definitely.
And that could be, there's more injuries to be had because now someone is, moving with you. There's a lot of momentum when, especially as a female, when someone's turning you, things like that. And that could definitely, cause some strain. Um, but I also think it's really cool that we get to work with another partner, another person, because I think that helps us to balance ourselves out a little bit as well. Um, yeah, I think our sport is
Yeah,
pretty spectacular
absolutely. I think
and very unique.
definitely. Yeah, I think the one aspect that separates ballroom dancing from other dance styles is the partnering aspect. We're really
Right.
coordinating our body and our movement or the quality of our movement with another individual. And when
Mhm.
it's done well, it's beautiful because they
Yeah.
create a couple creates a story and around them it's very captivating to watch and it's a pleasure to spectate. And I think on the flip side of what you said, like you can if you know how to coordinate and set up your body in a way that you can utilize your partner to create these unique actions, sometimes there are moments of dancing that are relatively easy and that don't need to be forced, right? That's kind of one,
Right. Because
you
you have
know,
someone else to help give you
yes,
momentum versus if you're just like running to do, a vault or something, or you're swimming or whatever. It's just you and
it's all
you.
on you.
It's all on
Absolutely.
you versus here you can actually like, especially from a female perspective, you have this balancing. I think that's what I was trying to get at is that feeling of being able to have someone else give power to you that you could then absorb and use in this
Absolutely.
potential and energy. It's pretty
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah, and then going back to what you said about like how we as dancers we don't really age out of ballroom, which
No,
is
we don't.
the best one of the best aspects of what we can do is you can dance for however long you want to dance. Yeah.
Right.
And those I think who are very skilled and who do very well are not just incredible dancers, but they really utilize and view their body as an instrument, and they're
Yes.
very in tune with what their body needs, how their body is feeling, and they're very forward thinking in the sense that like if I want to compete in X number of years, if I want to get to that next
Mm-hmm.
competition or that next achievement, I really need to put in the work now to make sure that my body is like well set up for
Absolutely.
um for achieving, or having the opportunity to achieve what I want in the future. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um one
totally agree.
one I won't say who, but there was a very very well known dancer, now retired, and I was speaking with this individual, and I can't remember the context, but basically what they said is just don't get old. And I was like, well, if that's your perspective, then that's you're not going to last that long. And granted,
Right.
this person was of course just joking, but I
Yes,
think
of course.
there's a sense in that, if that's your mindset,
Well, I was just gonna
then
say there's a mental aspect to what
it's
that person is
enable.
saying there. Yeah,
Yeah,
because I think that there are some people that I feel also they don't ever feel like they are getting old. But some
yeah,
people are like, man, when are they going to retire? Or how are they still going and dancing at this level? It's very hard to dance at that level for a very long time. It's not a very sustainable lifestyle. And
yeah,
again, another reason why we're trying to really grow this community is because we want to be able to have more sustainability and more consistency in this high level athletics and not you know, just throw everything out there and then not be able to recover, because you're exhausted and jet lagged. And like you said, if there's an injury involved, if your mental state is suffering, all of these different, or your finances,
yeah.
all of
You're
these
just
different
burning out.
pieces,
Yeah,
you're burning out slowly. And you're just trying to run as fast as you can so that you don't, lose runway. But if we can create a more sustainable way to do this, and that includes so many aspects of the physical, the mental, the financial, then we can have longer careers and not be some people are forced to retire for so many different reasons.
yeah, absolutely. I think that my ultimate hope is that, of course, in joining this dance wellness community,
Hmm.
but also in this endeavor that I've kind of willingly decided that was my calling. Um,
Yeah.
just that we kind of help to support our dance community in ways of resources,
Yes.
and again, kind of reduce those barriers to kind of accessing help in various means that can really help to support their careers long term.
Yeah. Well, and just knowledge. Knowledge is power. I mean, you gave some really great nuggets, golden nuggets in this episode, this conversation, because of things that I didn't even know that our bodies, our cells, our blood and all the things happening that I didn't, my heartbeat, all of those things. You just kind of like you go out there, you dance, you hope you don't pass out, and then you come back out and you're like, all right, let's do it again. Um, but I mean, obviously, like when you do this more and more and more, there's definitely preventatives and things that you do before and after a competition. It's not just, let's hope it works out, fingers crossed. But there are a lot of, I think, biological aspects to what you're discussing and what you do to help your clients that most people do not know. and it's not really widely known information. Yes, it's on Google, but unless you know what to search, you're not finding it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think that our dance style is unique in the sense that it is very, very taxing at a high intensity. It's basically like high intensity interval training. That is what we do.
Yeah.
We kind of max out for about a minute 15 to a minute 30, maybe 10 to 15 seconds of rest. And then we do it again anywhere from 3 to 5 to 10 more times, depending on what style you do.
Right.
And then we do it over multiple rounds, so over a course of a day or multiple days, depending on what type of competition it is. So I think as dancers become more seasoned in competing, the details really start to matter, not just like how they look, the fact that their dress is steamed, like how many days in advance they do their tan, or like yes,
Right.
all those aspects are very important.
They are, but yes, but again, as we said before at the very beginning of this episode, if you've got broken limbs or injured muscles or, what have you, that is definitely going to hinder your performance more than an uneven spray tan.
Yeah, as I think dancers become more seasoned, the details really matter. And if you look at really any dancer or any athlete at the top of their game, they're really making sure that they're not leaving much to chance. They're making sure they're getting good quality sleep. They're making sure that what they do leading up to getting 8 hours of sleep doesn't hinder the quality of their rest. They have their nutrition dialed in. They know what type of warm up routine they should have prior to being on the floor. It might vary from day to day. I'm pretty sure Kobe Bryant had a different warm up routine every single day, depending on how he felt.
Right. And what he needed in that moment.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's true. I mean, because some competitions aren't as intense as others, so I think that would adjust how you warm up and what you're doing and, how important it is to you in that moment. So I agree with that for sure. Well, this has been so great. I'm so excited to just continue doing these. I'm so excited to share this with our community. I'm so excited to have you here. This is going to be a wonderful new journey. And I think that we're going to help a lot of people have a lot more tools and resources in their toolbox in order to create a more sustainable dance career.
Yeah, I hope so too. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for inviting me. This was my first podcast. So
yay! I'm so excited.
Thanks for giving me a new experience. And It's been a pleasure talking with you. It really has been.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for listening. As I say every single time, all of the information that you are looking for to be a part of our community, to work with Christine, to work with me, Christine. You got so much Christine to go around. Everything's in the show notes of this episode. You can go to dancewellnesscommunity.com, sign up for our newsletter. That's a great place to start. If you don't know what to do, if you're not quite sure how you want to be a part of the community, or if you are not sure if there's any practitioner here that you could use some help from, just get to know us. We're all here to help you get to know us better. Sign up for the newsletter, listen to the podcast episodes, and see if there's something here that can help you have a better quality of your professional career and your personal career as well. Or your personal life, I guess. So thank you so much, Christine, for being here. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next month.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Secret is out and wow.